I just started playing Assassin's Creed again after 10 years. It's been that long. The last one I played was Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag. Came out back in November of 2013. Been a long time since I've played this series. The reason I actually wanted to play this series again was because Skull and Bones was coming out, and that is a pirate game. Not entirely sure if I'm getting it yet, but I thought what better way to maybe get a taste for the game other than to play Black Flag again. The reason I actually stopped playing Assassin's Creed back in the day was for basically one reason only, and that is, as good a game as Black Flag is, there is far too much garbage on the map. If you just take a look at that map, it's absolutely overwhelming with things to collect. Pointless buried chests, like pointless animus fragments, pointless bottles, like all this stuff. There is far too much stuff on the map. And I've absolutely got no shame in admitting that I'm one of these people that have like an OCD in gaming maps. And I felt like it was better for me, as much as I enjoyed Black Flag back in the day, to just stop after Black Flag, because I felt like it was only going to get worse after that game, and I didn't want to always have to go around collecting all these collectibles. I know they are completely optional, but to a lot of people, they're like one of those things that you just need to collect before you move on to the next section. A couple of hours into my replay of Black Flag, I'm suffering from the same problem I did 10 years ago, and that's going around getting all the collectibles, getting burned out of the story while I was doing it. I was like, honestly, is this a mistake? Because the gameplay is just so repetitive because of what I'm doing. I needed to have a new outlook on Assassin's Creed going back into it, and that was, do some of the collectibles as to no get burned out, just do some, and then do the story in order to appreciate it as well and no get burned out of the gameplay. That's how you're honestly supposed to go about Assassin's Creed. And I've never really played it like that. My Assassin's Creeds that were my favourite were the ones that didn't have too much collectibles in them, that were like always littered on the map. Problem is Black Flag put them all on the map, so you sometimes can't help it. But I said I need a new outlook on the game. As soon as I started doing that, I was enjoying myself a hell of a lot more. I still love Black Flag for what it is. It's an absolutely amazing pirate game where you can get absolutely immersed in the world. I just think that its main flaw is still the collectibles, because there's so much of the map that's like amazing to see, but all there is that's there is just a chest and a bottle. And I think like if they done more in the world, like actual side quests and stuff like that, it would have been far more enjoyable to play from that angle, because the best part of the story, the actual game itself, was the story. Meeting people like Blackbeard in the game, the other pirates, feeling like you were a pirate was the main enjoyment part of Black Flag. The naval combat being amazing as well, and I'm honestly still a fan of Edward Kenway. I still think he's a really good character that the franchise had. He might not be like your typical Ezio and that, who's still my favourite character, but he's certainly not a bad character for the franchise. The next one to come out was Assassin's Creed Unity, or at least you would think it was. Basically, what happened was when the PS4 came out, that was the next generation version of Assassin's Creed. It was a new Assassin's Creed game that was coming out, but there was actually another one that was coming out. It was called Assassin's Creed Rogue, and this game had been made for the PS3 and Xbox 360 era for people that had not actually bought into the next gen yet. It's actually a really cool thing that Ubisoft done when you think about it now, but back then a lot of people wrote off Assassin's Creed Rogue purely because it was on last gen, so this isn't the real Assassin's Creed that's coming out. Surely Unity is the next new one that's the big deal. I looked up a couple of reviews for the game and general opinions on like the Steam forums, Steam reviews, and a lot of people were using like the phrases of games just Black Flag 2. Black Flag 2 this, Black Flag 2 that, well worth your time. No really a lot of thumbs downs for the game, you know? People were saying, oh, I love playing as a Templar in this game, and that is something that stands out in this game. You actually do play as a Templar. So I was kind of like intrigued right off the bat to try it. I can honestly say my first session with Assassin's Creed Rogue wasn't too enjoyable. It takes place in the North Atlantic, so it was just a bit too much of a change from like Black Flag's like amazing environments, sunshine everywhere. You really go to like a gloomy part of the world in this game. It's like icebergs everywhere, dark and dingy, so it has a completely different feel to it. So I think that just kind of like depressed me a wee bit. So that's more of a me thing, you know? Also, Again, one thing that annoyed me about this game when I was playing it at the start was, look at the map. There is so many areas to go around and collect stuff on, but I was trying to stay strong and no veer off and collect everything. I actually did crumble. I went and collected a few things, alright? The problem is, this game had like something that popped up in the collectibles area where it was like, unlocked later, need to progress story in order to do these parts later. So even if I went out of my way to do the collectibles on some of the islands, I was kind of getting punished for doing them because I couldn't get everything done in the first place. It was like, oh no, you need to come back much later in the story to do this. So right then and there, I was like, you know what, dude? I am not even gonna bother if you're gonna want to make me come to the same area twice. That is basically how the first session of this game went. It wasn't a good start for Rogue. I do have to disagree with some people that kind of like just labeled the game as Black Flag 2, recommend this game because it's Black Flag 2. I don't think it's anything like Black Flag other than the fact that you actually do control a ship to get from A to B on the sea, which is like, I guess it's similar to Black Flag. Yeah, it's got naval combat, but it's really no like a major part of the game. If you're trying to like recommend this to someone as being Black Flag 2, I think they'll be disappointed just purely because it feels much more like an Assassin's Creed game where you just have a ship, other than Black Flag where it genuinely feels like a pirate game with Assassin's Creed in name only. It actually takes a wee while for the story to get going. That's where I think some people might get lost on Assassin's Creed Rogue, but once the story does get going, it is really enjoyable. I actually want to say it's one of the more better stories since Assassin's Creed 2, those games anyway. Basically, you play as Shay Cormac, and it's no secret that he does become a Templar in the game, but it takes a little while for him to become a Templar. Like, the beginning was the part of the game where I was kind of like, oh, I don't know if I'm feeling this game too much. Then when we made a transition into a Templar, and he literally changed outfit into a Templar, I was like, bruv, are you kidding me? Look at how sick this guy looks. I'm hella finishing this game. Because I didn't really enjoy the North Atlantic too much because I just came off Black Flag and I found that part a little bit of a downgrade, the part that I did enjoy was finding out later on that the city that we roam around in this game is actually New York City. I didn't even know that going in, but it takes a wee while for that to unlock in the first place. But New York City is absolutely amazing in this game, and it's one of the more better cities that I actually enjoyed roaming around. It feels like it's not really touched on that much that New York City is like one of the stars of Assassin's Creed Rogue, but I feel like it should get brought up more, because I feel like more people will actually maybe be tempted to play it if they find out that this is the New York City Assassin's Creed. I came away from Rogue feeling extremely satisfied. I feel like it reignited my fire for Assassin's Creed a little bit because I was actually playing more like an assassin or Templar, however you want to put it, because I love seeing it from the Templar's point of view and it made me want to see what comes next. I absolutely loved roaming around New York City. I thought that part was great. Not as much the naval stuff in this game, probably because I was more burned out of it from Black Flag. I would honestly recommend don't get everything on the map. The story is actually pretty short in this game, so it doesn't really take too long to get through. Nice little short one, didn't spend too much time on it. It's also amazing at how it bridges the gap between Assassin's Creed 4 and 3, and it really made me want to maybe dive back into Assassin's Creed 3 one day and remember what happened in that game. But right now I'm just happy with the characters that you've seen in the game. And I'll tell you something else. What made me want to play Unity is how this game ended. I thought it was absolutely outstanding cliffhanger how this game actually tied into Unity in the first place. Side note, shoutouts to Rogue for having the best version of the Assassin's Creed main theme in the entire series. I was honestly sitting on the menu sometimes listening to it for 10 minutes, it was that good. By the way, I'm spoiling the beginning of Unity. It's not really a spoiler, but it's kind of more of a spoiler towards the end of Rogue. Unity doesn't actually let you know this, it's only if you've actually played Rogue, but I thought it was one of the best things. I'm saying the spoiler, 3, 2, 1. Shay Cormac, as a Templar, when he's older, actually kills the Master Assassin in France, who just so happens to be Arno's father. Arno is the main character who you play as in Assassin's Creed Unity, and I was actually going to skip Unity at first until I seen this scene. It literally just dragged me in and made me want to play it. I was actually going to go straight on to Syndicate, but no, I ended up playing Unity. There's always some form of enjoyment to be found when playing an Assassin's Creed game, and you'll probably understand this when you play Unity. This game's got like a track record of like no being really well received with the internet. Absolute horrible amount of bugs. And, you know, the game looks really, really good for a game that came out in 2014, and I think it's been understood that the reason this happened is because the game was in development before the PS4 specs were out at the time, so like Ubisoft kind of overshot the mark there a little bit, so that's why the game really runs bad on base PS4 and stuff. It just was kind of ahead of its time in the graphics department and gameplay department. One aspect of the game where it's no ahead of its time is the story. I can't even remember that much of it, it was that forgettable. The main character Arno is like somewhat likeable. They tried to make another form of the Ezio character with him, it kind of feels like, because his dad was murdered by Shay, like what we were talking about, but they never really go anywhere with it. The story was not the main draw of Assassin's Creed Unity, at least for me. Like I was saying, the gameplay is one of the main draws of Assassin's Creed Unity. The way you go about the assassinations is amazing. There is multiple ways of actually going about the assassinations. There's a bit of a reputation online that this game is hard, and I think the reason that it's probably considered to be hard by a lot of people is because a lot of people like going balls to the wall, fighting every single enemy they come across, then assassinating the target. This game will let you do that, but it's still tough if you're just going to fight enemies, because the enemies are really brutal in this game. They will shoot you for like all your life, near enough. It's kind of brutal when it comes to that. But what the game does excel at is actually being an assassin and using stuff like your smoke bombs, your eagle vision to your advantage in order to assassinate the target without being seen. Never did it feel like any of the games so far that we'd played up until this point relied so heavily on your assassination tools as Unity did. Your eagle vision in this game was drastically changed from other games to actually be a cooldown. What eagle vision is it basically highlights the enemies on the screen and the surroundings so you can see everything around you, and also highlights whether people are allies, etc. And it's a really powerful tool in Unity because it's just like, it feels overpowered in the game, so that's why they've got it on a cooldown. Also, smoke bombs are huge in this game. It feels like smoke bombs are maybe... People are no aware of how smoke bombs work in the game. It could be a reason why people think the game's so hard. They're no using smoke bombs. But basically, put a smoke bomb on the ground and nobody can see you in that pile of smoke. You can walk around and assassinate anyone in the smoke bomb radius. It's very, very overpowered, and they give you like smoke bombs a lot in this game. So it's kind of like your easy way out is smoke bombs in Unity. I could imagine there's like runs that people do where they maybe don't use smoke bombs for people that maybe take the game a wee bit more serious. So your assassination tools in this game are huge. France looks absolutely amazing with how good the graphics are for this game in Unity. Like, seriously, it takes place during the French Revolution. It's got, like, honestly, like, 100 characters can be on screen at one time. The game looks hella impressive. The world looks hella impressive. But where the world actually falls short is because there's no character build-up with some of the characters in the game. So it kind of just makes the world feel a wee bit more empty, even though it's one of the more busier ones that they made. It just feels a bit more empty because you don't like know any of these people that are in it. There's nothing like that, so I don't know why the game just feels a little bit more empty. This happens in Assassin's Creed. Sometimes the worlds feel like they're lively, sometimes the worlds can give the impression that they look lively, but they're not really because the story never done a good enough job at building up all these characters, so it feels a bit more dead. Sometimes you can run into characters on the street having conversations, or someone in the cafe that you built having a conversation. But the thing is, I heard them having the same conversation 5 times. Like, they never changed their conversation up. And I didn't even know who the people were in the cafe because the game never even done a story about who the characters were in the cafe. These are things that Unity's missing, actually. Another thing Unity does really, really well, better than what I thought it would, is back in the day, one of the things that kind of turned me off about it was that it was actually going to be a cooperative Assassin's Creed. So I actually thought that was, like, needed in order to play the game well. That is like no the case. Like, co-op missions are not needed. They're a complete bonus. And would you believe it when I say that I actually done like maybe 2-3 co-op missions and I had hella fun doing them with people, even though I was like under leveled. People are still playing this game 2D. So like I can understand why some people are still playing it. It's a really good Assassin's Creed game where you feel like you're an assassin, and taking on all these missions with real people. It's kind of funny though, nobody's really being an assassin these days. You got like 4 or 5 assassins just running straight for the target. It's actually quite funny. I was dying though, because they were pairing me up with higher level missions when I was only like just started the game. There was nothing you could do about it. You got to like take it with consideration, because there's maybe not a lot of people playing the game, so the game kind of like shoves you into missions that people are playing instead, even though they're higher level ones. It'll just put you in it. So I was kind of like getting boosted with like higher level gear early on in the game, even though I had no worked for that gear, so to say. Speaking of gear, I think this is actually the first Assassin's Creed in all of them that done some form of microtransaction. Sad to see, but like you could actually buy credits that would allow you to buy higher level gear in the game. You don't have to be like a level in the game to like equip the gear. You could essentially like start a game up, buy a bunch of credits, and equip the highest, best gear in the game, starting the game out. I don't know how I feel about it. It never felt like you needed to do it. Let me just get that out the way. There is so much easy gear to obtain in the game that it didn't feel like you needed to do it. But the fact that it's there, I felt like it's worth mentioning. It was definitely weird to see it. It had not been in any of the games up until now. I think the best missions in the game for Unity were probably the murder mystery missions, where you just go around and solve a bunch of murders that have happened, and it kind of did feel like a more detective-esque type thing. I enjoyed doing them more than the main story. Sure, they actually like suffered from some repetitiveness, but that's what happens with every type of mission in any game. It can get repetitive, so you change it up between story missions, murder mystery missions, co-op mission here and there, and keep a good balance that way. Talking about collectibles as well on this map, the map is absolutely chocked full with chests. I ignored 90% of them in Unity because this was another game that just flooded the map with stuff. I came away from a time with Unity, just absolutely could not wait to start Syndicate because of how good the gameplay was in Unity, and I was eager to see if they could actually pull through with a really good story just to push it to that next level. It really felt like they were close to making a masterpiece here with the Assassin's Creed here that I missed. I'm not kidding. Stuff about Unity was genuinely enjoyable. It just fell flat because of the story. It's a real shame. Check out the DLC if you get time for it as well, because I played the DLC, The Dead Kings, and it's actually free, and it's probably one of the more better DLCs out of the entire franchise. Syndicate was the next one on the list, and I was really looking forward to playing this one because it takes place in Victorian London. It's one of my more favourite settings that I still feel like hasn't been too explored in video games in general, so it's always nice to play a Victorian London game. It is also the first Assassin's Creed game where you play as 2 characters. The main characters of this game are Jacob and Evie Fry, brother and sister, so it was going to be like interesting to see how the game balanced itself between the characters. It's the first time ever they done it. One thing I hated right off the bat in Syndicate: horse carriages. I couldn't stand them. I just felt like it looked stupid. They were so hard to control and the roads were never clear, so you were just banging into everything, knocking over lampposts. Typical GTA shit, you know, but that was worse if you could imagine it. One thing I loved right off the bat though, talk about those collectibles being annoying in all the previous games, guess what this game does? Something amazing. It doesn't chock the map full of garbage. It was one of my favourite things about the game. The way this game worked was, if you were running around on the street or crossing the roofs, if you seen a chest, it appeared on the map and you went and grabbed it. Cool. If there was any other collectible, the same happened there. It did not litter the map with garbage. It was a very, very clean map, and it only highlighted stuff, missions, objectives that you needed to see. That was very good. I much enjoyed that. But you could actually go to the merchant and buy maps that would reveal them, so if people actually wanted to play it old style with a map covered in garbage, I don't know why you would though, it was available to you. But I thought that was an amazing touch right off the bat, one of the first things I noticed like within playing the game in the first 5 minutes. The main characters are enjoyable. Jacob and Evie Fry, being brother and sister, they just have like a really good dynamic between the two, and I honestly want to say that those are the best things about the story is when Jacob and Evie Fry are talking to each other. You can tell they're brother and sister, they get on really, really well. They actually have completely different playstyles within the game. Jacob is more of a brawler, and Evie is more of a stealth based assassin. So if you want to play more stealthily with some of the side missions in the game, you would maybe play Evie because she's a wee bit more quieter in the stealth department. Although I kind of feel like people overblow this subject a little bit, like Evie's better at this versus Jacob being better at that. I feel like they can both be good at the exact same thing. It's not like Jacob is bad at stealth, it's just that she gets slightly more stealth points than him. But it's not really a big deal. I mean, if you're good at being an assassin, Jacob can be equally as good an assassin, and Evie can be equally as good at combat as Jacob. It's just that one excels in the department a little bit better than the other to give you incentive to play as either character. It's a good touch. Because I said Jacob and Evie Fry are probably still the best thing about the story as a whole, I still agree. I still think they are the best thing about it. You care for the characters, and that is where the story succeeds. But where it actually fails is the story is just not that interesting again. It's maybe better than Unity, but it's no like anything to write home about. I actually think the worst thing about the story as well here is the Templars. The Templar Order in this game is probably one of the weakest Templar Orders in any of the games. Usually the Templars are made out to be like a big deal in Assassin's Creed, but I genuinely feel like in Syndicate they're probably one of the more weakest Templars there's ever been. It's definitely one of the weakest Grand Masters. I never ever felt like he was threatening anything or like a scary figure. Now, you never felt intimidating. So I think the game failed in the Templar department. Another area where the game failed, I think, and it kind of goes back to the story a little bit, is usually in Assassin's Creed they have a bunch of historical figures, and it's always nice to see these historical figures. They don't like over flood you with them or anything like that, but like this game has too many. I honestly want to say that there's just far too many historical figures in this game. There's Charles Dickens, to name a few, Charles Darwin. You've even got Florence Nightingale. There's just too many. Queen Victoria. So, like, it just feels like they tried to put in as many as they could. And it's kind of like, oh yeah, Queen Victoria's here, cool. When it's kind of like they could have made a bigger deal about them rather than just overflood you with them. To talk about a couple of the things the game done right though, assassinations again were the best thing about it. You really did feel like an assassin in this game, and you could be as quiet as you wanted, avoiding everything. Smoke bombs were great in this game again. The cover system is better in this game than it was in Unity, which lends itself to the stealth even better. They had unique kill opportunities in this game. So like on every single mission where you had to assassinate a target, there was a unique kill requirement, which led into a cutscene specific kill, which is mostly what I done for all of them. And the fact that there is multiple ways to go about the assassinations leads itself to replayability again if you ever do want to play the story mode again. That was one of the more better things about Syndicate as a whole. There's actually an EXP system in the game, like a level-based system. I think the highest level you can go is level 10. I think what I made it to was level 9 in the end. You actually get a bunch of ability points, so you can funnel them into a specific play style, like more combat-orientated or more stealth-orientated, or more world-orientated, like adding buffs to the carriages and stuff. Don't worry about it though, you actually get more than enough like ability points to go around. There's no real rush for them or anything. You're not really like playing any wrong way. I think it's mostly like common sense that people would maybe go for a wee bit more survivability if you do get into fights, or maybe more stealth if you're going to go down that route. The level system in the game never really felt like it got in the way of me enjoying it, or like really felt like it stopped me from doing anything. One of the main things about this game that I've not talked about is that actually you are in control of a gang, which is kind of part of the main story, and you're kind of like tasked with overtaking London. You don't have to overtake all of it for the story's sake, only a little bit. So you actually get in a few gang wars. But the way the game works is it's like being ran by gangs in certain portions of the maps. So you have to go in there and infiltrate the bases, and then it becomes your base, essentially. And talking about the level system is if you're good enough, even at level 1, you can go and take down a level 9 base, because the game actually, like, fundamentally relies on you being an assassin. You can still take down a level 9 enemy if you're good enough with the smoke bombs, with no getting detected. You can get rewarded for that playstyle, and I think that is a good touch that they kept in. Like, most players might no go and interact with that area because it's a higher level, but if you're a good player at being an assassin, Assassin's Creed, then you will get rewarded with taking down those enemies early, get more funds in order to buy stuff. It's good. I didn't mind the level system. It never really felt like it got in the way of me enjoying the game. Another thing that I quite liked was actually the zipline, a new mechanic that made its way into the game. Because the Victorian London isn't really... It's not really modelled like a normal Assassin's Creed game where you're jumping from house to house or building to building, which is kind of what Assassin's Creed relies on for the parkour. This game relied on you having a zip line. It's almost like Batman if you've ever played like Arkham City and stuff. It's not as advanced as that, but you basically use a zip line to go from like building to building, and it's actually a really, really fun way of traversing the game. A nice switch up, because we just played games like Black Flag, Rogue, and Unity back to back. This game changed it up, giving you the zip line. I don't know how most people feel about it, but it was a really nice change of pace for traversal in the world for me specifically. Liked it a lot. Syndicate had some really, really unique missions. There's actually some missions in the game that take place during World War I, but it's actually not even the same story. It's like a little side story where you play as Jacob's granddaughter, and it actually has Winston Churchill in it. It's a cool little side story within the game. It's just like several missions, and it maybe only lasts like an hour and a half if you do everything, but it feels like a game within a game, and it actually gives you a inkling into what it would be like if World War I was to ever have a specific Assassin's Creed game to it. I also played the Jack the Ripper DLC, and I thought it was alright. I think it maybe gets overhyped for being better than what it is, and the reason I say that is because I genuinely think Jack the Ripper should have maybe been included in the main game's story rather than a separate DLC. I think that's one of the more disappointing things about Syndicate's story, is if they actually managed to incorporate like Jack the Ripper stuff into the main story and maybe make it a bit more darker than what the overall Syndicate story was, I think it would have just suited the time period better. But nonetheless, it was still an absolutely fantastic game, and I enjoyed my time with it. I honestly want to say that I think I enjoy Syndicate more than Unity as a whole package, just because it offers more to the player, but Unity was still a great game. Believe it or not, after all these games though, I was still not burnt out of Assassin's Creed. The next one on the list though was Assassin's Creed Origins, which was said to be a completely different type of Assassin's Creed game, more like an RPG Assassin's Creed. So I was already like excited to try it and just see what exactly was different about it. It takes place in ancient Egypt though. I was never someone who was too fond of ancient Egypt, so nonetheless I was excited to see what it had to offer. Right off the bat, when I turned the game on, I was actually greeted with difficulty options for this game, which is a first for Assassin's Creed, let me tell you. Easy, normal, hard, and nightmare mode. I was tempted to play nightmare mode, but I had a look online and the people were saying that the nightmare mode was a DLC mode, so I kind of figured that had been put in for people who were constantly playing the game. So if the game launched on hard mode, I went in with hard mode and took it from there. Thought it would be a good idea for someone like me. I thought, like, I'm pretty good at Assassin's Creed games, hard mode will do me. This game was huge. As soon as I turned it on, like, and took a look at the map, I was absolutely, like, overwhelmed when I seen the size of the map that you had to uncover. I was like, just calm down, take it step by step, and don't get too overwhelmed. I actually managed to do every single thing in the first area to get a little bit of an idea of the side content that the game was trying to offer, and I overall enjoyed the stuff that it was trying to offer. Little areas where you went around trying to get some of the treasure, little areas where you killed the captain of the forts and looted the treasure as well. I liked those things. The problem is, there's too many of them. There is far too many of them that are all too similar. Kind of like just a normal Assassin's Creed problem where it comes to quantity over quality. So like, That's what made me calm down with how the map looked. I mean, the map might be that big, but if it's all the same stuff and there's no that much variation to them, I'll just try and do some of them along the way of doing the main story. That was my outlook on the game as a whole. Hopped on my camel that I called Roy, and I actually just went on with the main story and tried to do some side stuff along the way. The game kept trying to make me go on a horse though, and I didn't appreciate it. I was trying to get immersed into the Egyptian style, and camel felt like the way forward for me. One thing I noticed right off the bat with this game though is obviously just how different the combat is in the game. It's so different, the combat, from normal Assassin's Creed, that I don't know how to phrase how the game is. It's more hack and slash style. I wouldn't say it's like Souls combat or anything, but it feels more hack and slash style. And I didn't mind it for a change up. I actually didn't mind the actual one-on-one combat. Because I prefer the more stealth aspect to the game, I was kind of going to mix it up between the two anyway. I found myself doing a bunch of the side quests all of a sudden, straying from the main story, which I really didn't mind because a lot of the side quests felt unique at the start. I was enjoying them, and it kind of reminded me of The Witcher 3 a little bit. And come to think of it, a lot of the game actually reminded me of how The Witcher 3 worked. A lot of question marks on the map that really felt like it was taken straight from The Witcher 3, because that's how The Witcher 3 went about it. Big, huge areas to explore that looked kind of similar in terms of landscape to The Witcher 3. I don't know, it just felt overall that the game borrowed a lot from The Witcher 3. This game came out back in 2017, a couple of years after The Witcher 3, so you can really feel the influence of The Witcher in this game. That's what it feels like to me, of course. I would honestly go out on a limb though and say that the side quests in this game don't really have anything on The Witcher 3. They're a bit too similar to each other. In The Witcher 3 though, the side quests were absolutely different. There was never a similar side quest to anything. But in Assassin's Creed Origins, it kind of felt like there was a lot of, oh, my husband's being captured, my son's being captured, can you go save them? Different flavour, the same quest. But there was a lot of ones that were slightly different from each other that were much better to do. The thing is, you couldn't really tell them apart from the other ones that felt more like bloatware. So it kind of felt like the collectibles in this game were more the side quest, as opposed to the actual areas where you took down the captains on the map or looted the treasure. It felt like the side quests were the collectibles in this game more than anything, because you did get levels and experience points from doing the side quests, and that is the main thing that leveled you up. Okay, so this is my main beef with the game. It's the level up system. I don't really know what they were thinking. I think some people can actually screw themselves over in the ability trees, because there's multiple ways you can take your playstyle. You can go into legit combat, which is honestly the better way to go about it out of all of them. Or you can go into more assassin-y style stuff, like getting smoke bombs and that, but they don't work the same in this game as they do in previous Assassin's Creed. Sleep darts are about the only thing you kind of want to get in this game, I think. At least that's what it felt like to me. And then you could also specialize in bows. But I think you're better going a little bit into bows and mostly into the actual hack and slash section of the game. Because the way this game works though, when it comes to the level system, is difficulty might as well no exist, because if you are 3 levels lower than the enemy, you cannot one-shot them with a hidden blade. This is a fundamental thing that is in Assassin's Creed. A fundamental thing that is in Assassin's Creed since the first one. If you can assassinate a target, you one-shot them. In this game, you cannot one-shot an assassination target if they are higher level. They have to be within 2 levels in order for you to be able to assassinate them. Say you're going up to a level 40 enemy and you're 37 and he's fucking sleeping. You cannot one-shot him. The game just says, no. No, sir, you cannot assassinate this man because he's 3 levels higher than you. Go and level up one more time, then you can do it. So that is a major beef that I actually had with the game, is the overall level up system, and I don't really know what Ubisoft were thinking with it. So the problem became constantly trying to stay within the level requirements of the main missions, so you actually felt a little bit forced to do the side quests. Even though I kind of wanted a break from the side quests and just wanted to do the main story, I couldn't even do some of the main story because they kept me behind because I couldn't one-shot the assassination targets. So I actually had to go and level up before being able to do the main mission. So it always kind of put a bit of a dampener on the pacing of the main story and the game in general. That is my major beef with Origins as a whole. If it didn't have a level gating system to stop you from having fun, I think the game would have been even better than it probably already is, because I genuinely do think the game is good. It's got some of the best environments. I loved roaming around Egypt in the game. I loved the gear system, getting new gear. That felt like we were powering up enough. Why did we need to level up? Why is the gear system here when it's mostly hidden behind the levels anyway? It just felt like it contradicted itself a little bit there with the level ups. Other than the level up system, like no being to my fancy in this game, I really did have a lot of fun with Origins. I think the main character of Bayek is one of the more likable characters of the series in a long time for me personally. And at least even if I didn't want to do a million side quests, I still kind of enjoyed them though, because they always felt kind of personal to him. And it was also cool doing some of the missions that you played as with his wife, Aya, because you felt for her too. It's not really like a spoiler for the game, but the game kind of like, the story is more about vengeance as well, because their son is murdered. And the way you actually go about taking down the targets in this game feels more old-schooly Assassin's Creed, where the targets feel like a big deal, like we have to take these guys down. And it didn't feel like that in games like Unity and Syndicate as well, because they didn't do the story as well. So I think the story in this game is better in that regard. My only beef with the story in this game, and it's maybe just a personal thing for me, is ultimately when they do make the Creed of Assassins, it's built on the foundation of vengeance, which is something the Assassins kind of go against overall. So that kind of fell a bit flat with me. It's like, oh, the Assassin's Creed Order came from vengeance, when that's one of the things they stand against. Like, they kick people out of the Creed purely for wanting vengeance, so it kind of felt like they went against that. I think they could have made something better up in that regard, but other than that, I overall did like the main story of Origins. The story is also really good in the DLC, the hidden ones. I think there's 2 DLCs for this game, the hidden ones and the Curse of the Pharaohs, and the more memorable one for me was probably the hidden ones because of how you went around the assassination targets. It takes place years after the main story, where he is a full-fledged assassin and the Brotherhood is going. So that Hidden Ones DLC feels more like an assassin-y based DLC specific for like old school fans a little bit. Just be warned and don't do it under level. But you might have no choice. This was one of the hardest DLCs I've played in a minute, and it's because I done it under level. And like what I said earlier, there's a lot of level gating going on in this game. So if you actually do go into it at like level 36 that I was, you're no one-shotting anyone, and it can make some of the level extremely hard in the hidden ones. Curse of the Pharaohs is more forgiving in that regard though. You can be lower level and get away a little bit more because they nerf the levels of the enemies. The story is not as good in the Curse of Pharaohs, but the world is better in the Curse of Pharaohs, I think. And that's me. That's the last one I played today, Assassin's Creed Origins. Just finished Curse of the Pharaohs DLC a few hours ago. I thought I would do a little bit of a video because I've been missing from this series for 10 years, and it felt like a shame not to do a video about Assassin's Creed going back to it after all this time. I might have been gone for 10 years, but that's only 4 years worth of games, believe it or not, 2013 to 2017. There's still other games to play. Odyssey is the next one after that, then Valhalla. I don't know if I'm going to be playing them. All I know is right now I'm needing one hell of a break. But I am so glad that I revisited the Assassin's Creed franchise and had a bit of a different outlook on what made me stop in the first place, which was just an overflood of like collectible spam. You know, the series still has greatness in it. Absolute greatness. And I truly do get reminded just why Assassin's Creed 2 is one of my favourite games that I've ever played. And it's because the series truly is an absolutely amazing series, and I honestly would recommend people who have never really played any Assassin's Creeds to maybe give one of them a bash. It's not like you need to know every single game in the series to enjoy them. I feel like there's a game for everyone in Assassin's Creed. Hey guys, thanks to anybody who checks out any of this video. I just got off a huge Assassin's Creed binge. It would have felt like such a waste if I didn't actually do a video on YouTube about my time with the games and how much I enjoyed them again. It's a longer video though, but I really didn't want to have to do a video about every single individual game. I'm happy putting them in a little bit of a collection. I feel like I got across what I really wanted to say about the games and how much I liked them. I'm happy with that, and it still stays in line with what we've been doing on the channel lately. For the Creed, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.